Hey everybody, how you doing, man? Coach Free here. Check this out, man. Today we're going to talk about how to optimize your brain, right? We're going to give you a few little things to optimize your brain with. It's 7 little things that we do in neuro coaching, neuro leadership, and it's called the Healthy Mind Platter is what it's called. And there's 7 parts to this thing, and I'm just going to cover them real quick. I'm going to cover through them, maybe give you a little bit of definition about them. If you have questions after the little presentation about any part of this, just make sure you reach out to me so I can help clarify it or maybe give you some more suggestions on how to do this, right? As a health coach, we have 2 platters, right? We have the platters that you eat, the food types of food that you eat, and we cover that. And you also have what we call the life platter, right? And your life platter consists of 12 different areas, right? And those 12 different areas are from spirituality, health, relationship, career, finances. We also get into joy and happiness and a few other areas of your life, right? To help try to find balance in your life. But there's a third platter, and then that third platter is the Healthy Mind Platter, and that's from the neuro coaching part of what I do, right? You learn how to optimize your brain. And if you've been with me long enough and you've been a part of what we're doing for long enough, you already know that the mind and the brain are 2 different things, right? A lot of people, say it as if the mind and the brain are the same, but they're not, right? The mind is the mind and the brain is the brain. So, and what ends up happening in this situation is the mind helps to create the brain, right? And the brain fuels the mind, right? Because, because of your imagination and all that kind of stuff and your perception of life, right? And that's what you focus on when you're making suggestions in life or when you're thinking about certain things throughout life, right? That projection based on what you've been through in life, your paradigms in life, those things affect how you view the world. And that also affects how you obtain information from the mind to the brain. But we'll get deeper into that later on. I know that might have been a little bit of confusing, but we'll get into that deeper into that later on. But today we're just going to talk about the Healthy Mind Platter. And these are 7 things that you can do. You want to try to do them every day, right? To optimize the brain, right? Because that's key in learning, is learning these little 7 steps and applying these little 7 steps. And it's not like you have to apply each of one of these for like 2-3 hours a day, right? Just, maybe 30 minutes to an hour, right? A day, 30 minutes, 45 minutes to an hour a day. If you can find time to make this happen, to do, to get all 7 of these in a day, then you're really maximizing the mind and you're conditioning the brain. I'm sorry. You're conditioning the brain to maximize itself. To optimize the brain, period. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is focus time. Focus time is just, being focused, right? Whatever you're doing, just being focused on what you're doing, staying focused right here, avoiding any distractions, et cetera, et cetera. You're staying focused. The more that you focus on something, the more you stay focused on certain things, right? Different tasks, right? Instead of going from task to task to task to task, right? Stay with a task, complete that task, and then go to the next task, right? I know a lot of people are into multitasking, and, I'm not saying it's a horrible thing, but it's not something that, you want to constantly do all the time, right? There's a time and a place for, multitasking, right? But that's not something that you want to focus on doing every day. I know some people, they quick to say, like, I'm good at multitasking, right? I multitask all day, every day, right? That's not really a good thing, right? You should have selected times where you have to multitask, not every day. Not all the time should you be multitasking. You should be spending more time on being focused on a specific thing, right? And complete that thing and then go to the next. A lot of people that do a lot of multitasking, right? They have some issues with time management, right? They have issues with time management and prioritizing. And, so they end up having to do a bunch of multitasking, right? Because their time management skills are off. They're not prioritizing things, and as humans, we all know that things pop up, right? But when it's come to focus time, right? When you get in that little time of focus time, it's to stay focused in what you're doing. And when you do that, right, and you avoid distractions, right, you optimizing that part of your brain, right? You're really focusing in on that brain, which strengthens that part of your brain so that you can focus, right, more, right? You can focus better. You can focus better and harder than you've ever focused before, because now you've trained yourself to stay focused, right? And one thing that you have to understand, that when it comes to focus time or anything else that you got going on, right, your brain registers distractions as a threat. Y'all got me, right? Your brain, if you're doing something, you're focused on something or whatever, and then you got all these distractions going on around you, right? Your brain is registering those as threats because they're taking you from what you're focused on. So your brain will register as a threat. Now, when something registers as a threat, what ends up happening is your brain, right? You know what I'm saying? You end up going into what we call the primitive state of mind, or the primitive brain, right? Which is your survival mode. That's why if you're focused on something and somebody come up and they're just distracting you, and you just blow up like, get away from me, whatever the case is, that's because you're in your lower registry of brain, right? You're in your primitive brain. So therefore, you know what I'm saying, it's fight or flight. You try, you know what I'm saying? It's fight or flight type of mode that you're in. Now, when you're in that mode, what ends up happening is, right, you have energy, right, in your brain, right? And when you're focused or whatever the case is, that energy is basically, right, in that prefrontal cortex of your brain. And that's where your intellectual part of your brain is, the prefrontal cortex, which is right behind the eyes in that area, right? So, so once you get into all of these distractions, right, now you go to a lower registry of your brain. And what ends up happening is, once again, you go into fight or flight. So you're taking energy from the prefrontal cortex of your brain, right, the intelligence parts of your brain, and now you're in a primitive state of mind of in your brain of fight and flight, right? So you're not focused intellectually on what you should be doing, right? You're not acting, reacting, or responding from an intellectual type of brain, right? You're acting from survival. You're acting from a survival type of attitude, right? So you got to make sure that, you spend time in focusing, right? To get pinpointed focus on whatever it is you're trying to do, complete that task, go to the next task, and complete that task, and try to avoid all your distractions. Try to avoid as many distractions as you can. Now, one of the last things I'm going to say about this is, right, when you're in your focus mode, right, and your brain is shooting up a bunch of information, your brain is, all kind of little different thoughts are popping up in your head. And all it is these thoughts are applying for attention, right? They're looking for attention. They want you to pay them some attention, but you can't really afford to, right? Because you got to stay focused. So what do you do to remedy that? Is when you're working and you're in your focus of time, you should have a piece of paper or a tablet or a pen next to you, because what happens is, right, you don't ignore it, right? Because if you ignore it, the thought is going to keep coming up. It's going to keep popping up. It's going to keep, it's just going to stay there. It's just going to keep coming up, right? So you take the piece of paper or pen and you write it down real quick, right? You write whatever that thought is, you write it down real quick. Don't pay a lot of attention to it. Just write it down. Give it some attention, because your thoughts are like little kids, right? And you know how little kids are, right? If they want your attention, if they need your attention, they just keep tapping you on your shoulder, right? No matter if you're focused and they'll just stay here and they'll just keep tapping you, and they'll get all in your face and they'll do all of these things because they want your attention. That's the way your thoughts are, right? They're just like little kids. And as soon as you turn around and you give that kid, a few seconds of attention, right? Whether it's negative attention or positive attention, which you don't really want to go negative, but you turn around and you give that kid some attention, then that kid will go head on, right? And your thoughts are the same way. So by you having that pad next to you and you're writing these thoughts down, right, then that thought will most likely just go away, right? unless it's something really important. Now, if you write it down and it's still and it continues to come back and it continues to just be there, okay, there's a deeper problem in that situation, right? There's an emotion that's connected to that thought. And, you know what I'm saying, emotionally, your emotions are keep bringing that thought back. So you got to, you know what I'm saying, you got to figure that out, right? And you got to write down the emotion, right? Right on that same pad, write down the emotion. I'm angry, right? This thought makes me angry, right? And just go through the process of just writing down, you know, what you're feeling, right? You don't have to spend a whole bunch of time on it. Just write down the emotion, right? Or the feeling, right? That makes me sad. This thought makes me sad. This thought makes me angry, right? And write that stuff down. And we'll go really deeper into that later on as far as the process of processing that, right? Of dealing with that. But focus time, make sure you guys understand that number one is focus time, right? And the more you stay focused on tasks, right? And avoid the distractions, avoid, you know, multitasking. I'll try to avoid multitasking, right? Because every time you jump to another subject, that's a distraction from what you was doing and what you want to do. So your brain will register that as a threat. And where you think that you're intellectually handling something, you're not, because you're in your primitive state of mind and you're acting, reacting, and responding from that primitive state, not your intellectual state, right? And I'm gonna leave that alone. Now the next one is playtime. Playtime, you know what I'm saying, is what playtime does is playtime builds new connections in the brain. And when we say playtime, what we mean by playtime is play like a child, right? Just go and just be like a kid. Just go play like a kid. Be spontaneous about what you're doing. Be creative. Do something creative. Do something spontaneous, right? Those types of things, because you're building new connections. And when the brain is like more connections you have, or you create, right? There's more stuff that you can relate other things to help you solve problems, to help you deal with certain events or certain situations. So you want to get into playtime, right? You want to get out and you want to play with your kids, but you don't want to dictate the situation, let them control the situation, and you just play like a kid, right? Have a new experience. And that's another thing with, playtime, and that leads into the next one. But, you know what I'm saying, playtime is just having that experience, a different experience than what you always have, right? You get up, you go to work, you you do this, you do that, right? Sometimes it's just okay to just play like a kid. Just go out there and just have fun. Don't care, don't worry who looking at you. Don't worry about how silly you look. Don't worry about none of that. Just go play, right? And have a ball, right? And that's what playtime does. And like I said, your playtime helps to build different connections in the brain, which eventually help you solve different problems and situations, right? Number 3 is called connection time. Connection time is where you actually get out and you connect with other people, right? The brain itself loves novelty. It loves new, right? New conversation. It loves meeting new people. It loves having new events, right? New things to do, right? New books to read, those types of things, right? It's getting out and actually making connections with other people, because our brains are wired for to socialize, right? And when you're out and you socializing with people and you're having new events, you're having a new experience in life, once again, the brain lights up like a big old Christmas tree. It lights up because you got all kind of things happening. You got a new experience, you got a new conversation, you got a new person, right? That you're you know what I'm saying, a new environment, right? So your brain is just firing off in all kind of ways. Now understand that when the brain fires off in that type of way, right, your brain and body is releasing dopamine. And dopamine is that feel-good chemical, right? And you also have some other chemicals that's being, released throughout your body, right? Released throughout your body, and that are affecting your body in that way. You might get a little bit of norepinephrine and epinephrine in the process, right? You know what I'm saying? But it's not enough to, cause your serotonin levels to put you in a state of depression, right? And that's what it's about, right? Basically getting that dopamine to release, to get you out of that threat of your serotonin levels, putting you in a depressive state. So that's what it's about, man, is to get out and make connections. So if you're getting out and you're making connections, right? Once again, your body is releasing a melody of chemicals, right, that are reacting in your body, that's causing you to act, react, and respond to life in a different way. Now, if you're into the whole law of attraction type thing or whatever, this type of situation also raises your vibrational energy, right? Playtime raises your vibrational energy. Making connections to new people, socializing, makes a new, raises your vibrational energy. Being able to focus, right, and know that you completed the task raises your vibrational energy. And that's what this is about. And that's another reason why these 7 steps are important, because it also helps you raise your vibrational energy so that you can receive more back from the universe. Anyway, now the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5th one is physical time. Physical time is where you actually get out and go work out, right? And it doesn't have to be work out. You can go dance, right? That's why a lot of people like Zumba, right? Because they're moving their body, right? When your body's moving, right, your body's releasing all kind of chemicals again, and that's what people got to understand. It's about releasing these chemicals, you know what I'm talking about, and directing these chemicals to make you feel better. And what ends up happening is, once again, you raising your vibrational energy because you're having fun, you're making new connections, et cetera, et cetera. So physical time is important, right? To get out and do your workout, go out and have fun, right? So if you're out dancing or whatever for physical time, you're out dancing. That means you're out socializing, right? You're having a new experience, which releases even more dopamine, right? And dancing, basically, a lot of people see that as playing like a kid, right? So you're out playing like a kid, but you're dancing, right? Which releases more chemicals, or a greater amount of chemicals. And now you're focused on the steps, you're focused on the moves, you're focused on doing what needs to be done. So that all of that together raises your vibrational energy, right? And that's what you're emitting out into the universe. That's what's going to come back to you, so that you have more of that, so you can enjoy more of that in life. So you got to get out, and you got to be focused on what you're doing. You got to have some playtime. You got to make connections with, social connections with people, or whatever the case is. And then, your physical time is important, right? Because of the chemicals that it releases. All of this stuff is important because of the chemicals it releases. But in your brain, these are something that you want to really, focus on to help optimize the brain, right? Now, the number 6 one, I'm sorry, what's that, number 5? Is time in, right? Time in. When we say time in is when you're mostly focused on the inward, right? You're focused inward on you, right? You're focused on the sensations of your body. You're focused on your thoughts, right? You're reflecting on, emotions. You're reflecting on you, right? And it's just being focused on yourself, focused on how you feel, focused on how, you can go out in nature, right? And just focus on the smell of nature, the feel of nature, right? Those types of things. It's just in time. And, that's where, meditation comes into place, and all of those types of things, right? Having more self-awareness. Those types of things come into place when it's inward, right? When it's time in. So making sure that you get some time, and, and taking that time, right? 20, 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour of just time to yourself, right? Inward time. That's not time to you. Well, inward time, where you're just focused on you personally. Now, the next one is downtime. Downtime is basically you chilling, right? You're chilling. You're not worried about nothing. You're not focused on nothing. You don't want to focus on nothing. You're just there. You know what I'm saying? You're just present, right? But you're not anything, right? You're not focused on anything. You're not, you're not trying to create anything. And this is when your brain starts to recharge. This is this part right here is where your brain recharges. And there's different ways of doing that. And one of the ones we learned from Shante Javon Taylor is what they call a pseudonym nap, right? And taking a regular nap helps also. But it's a pseudonym nap, like, maybe do some vacuuming in the house, without focusing really on anything. Just vacuum the house, maybe go wash the dishes, maybe, you know what I'm saying, just do things around the house, right, that don't take a lot of focus or don't take a lot of, you know, create stress or anything like that. It's just letting your brain go and just doing something or chilling out, just laying back, chilling, right, and not focused on anything. So your brain has time to basically recharge, reset, do what it's got to do. Now, number 7 is sleep time. Sleep time basically is go to sleep, right? Because your brain has, you have to go to sleep, right? So your brain can clean out the garbage, so your brain can, you know, consolidate information. It can, and it can recover. So sleep is important for recovery, right? And when it comes to sleep, right, it's only during REM sleep that your brain is actually doing the work. It's actually doing a lot of work as far as the clean out and all that kind of stuff, right? It's when you're doing REM sleep. And, you know, so you want to get as many rounds of REM sleep as you can, you know what I'm saying, in your sleeping period. 5, 7 more hours, right? Everybody's a little different. Everybody's a little different. Some people need 5 hours. Some people need 8 hours. Some people need 12 hours. I don't know, right? But everybody has a different, you know, clock. So, you know what I'm saying? So but you got to try to get that sleep in there, honestly, right? I think in training, you know, so we tried that. We basically stuck with 7 hours. Try to get at least 7 hours of sleep. That way the brain can really get in there and really do what it's got to do and get rid of the cobwebs and all that kind of stuff and get ready for the next day, right? Because even when you sleep, your brain is still collecting data. It's still collecting information, but it's not collecting it because you're not focused on anything. And, you know what I'm saying? And there's not a lot of distractions, right, to be focusing on. So your brain needs that sleep time. Right. So once again, I know I kind of messed that up a little bit, but, you know, saying your healthy mind platter is important, right? Just like the foods that you eat, right? And you got to be mindful of that too, because the foods that you eat also affect your brain. So you know what I'm saying? And we'll get into that. That's a whole nother class, and I'll do that class maybe next week, as far as certain, you know, foods to eat and what try not to eat, right? To that affect your brain. We'll get into that maybe next week. But anyway, when it comes to the healthy mind platter, number 1 is focus time, right? And focus time is just stay focused, right? Avoid the distractions, stay focused in what you're doing. You enhance your brain, you optimize your brain in a couple of different ways. You optimize your brain so that you can focus more, so that you know what I'm saying, and after a while you'll start noticing that you're able to focus more, you're able to do more, right? The number 2 is playtime. Play like a child, right? Go color, do coloring book, right? Go do a coloring book, go play with the children, right? And let them dictate the situation. Stuff like just go do something that's spontaneous, right? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to do something real spontaneous. Go do that, right? Be creative in that process. In your playtime is be creative, right? Maybe, do some drawing, right? Maybe you can't draw. Maybe you're not an artist, but just go get you a piece of paper or something and just draw something, right? And it has a meaning to you. It might not have a meaning to nobody else, but it's got a meaning to you, right? Just go have that moment of playtime. Number 3 is connection time. And this is where you're actually getting out and you're connecting with people, right? You're actually, I know everybody's on social media nowadays, and, you're trying to make connections through social media, but, and I'm not saying that it doesn't release dopamine in you. And I'm not saying that it doesn't work, but it doesn't work like making physical connections. You feel what I'm saying? Making that physical connection, having that new conversation, having that new experience in life, right? That's why it's important that you make those connections, because, and if you physically make them, then it's a better type of connection. You feel what I'm saying? And it does more for your brain as far as optimizing your brain, right? All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 4 is physical time. Actually getting up, doing some workout, right? Working out, maybe dancing, or going out, just going for a walk, right? And just enjoying your walk or whatever the case is just get up and do something physical, you know what I mean, to get things rolling, right? You know, when it comes to working out and those types of things, right, it's about that heart rate, because, you know, your heart produces more energy than anything else in your body. So if you get that heart rate up, right, you got everything starts to move, everything's moving, everything's grooving in your body, and your body has a chance to really go into to go to work. But, you know, we'll get into that, which also affects the brain. So, right, you got your physical time, and then you have number 5, which is time in. Time in is that inward reflection, right? Where you're reflecting on yourself. You're reflecting on how you feel. You're reflecting on what you're thinking. Maybe you're out into the environment, in the wilderness. Maybe you're out in the wilderness or wherever, right, in the woods or something like that, and you're just enjoying the peace and the quiet, or, you know what I'm saying, the smells and all that kind of stuff, right? That's just an inward type of thing. And you're just paying attention to you and how you feel and how you think about the situation, the circumstances, and where you're at, right? Without going deep into your emotions about it, just how do you feel at that moment? How are you feeling right now, right? About you, about, you know what I'm saying, how your body feels. Just paying more attention to that. And that, what happens with that is, you know what I'm saying, you're there's a lot of things going on, right, with sensations in the body and all those kind of things, and we'll go deeper into that later on in life. Now, number 5 is what we call downtime. Basically, downtime is just, I'm not focused on nothing. I don't want to hear nobody. I don't want to hear nothing. I don't want no music, none of that. It's just downtime, right? And I'm not really, you know, every thought comes to my mind, I might jot it down and just, you know, get rid of it. Just chill out, right? You know, nothing crazy, nothing serious. Just chill out, right? And that's what downtime does. And what that does is recharge the brain, right? That's where you get that recharging of your brain. The examples of that would be taking a nap, like a quick nap, you know, 20-minute, 30-minute nap, just to, you know what I'm saying, maybe get a couple rounds of REM in, maybe get a, you know, just a little bit of REM sleep in, you know, clean out some of the cobwebs, some of the garbage from earlier that day, just that type of things, you know. And I brought up Shante Javon Taylor taught us about facilitating naps and, you know, those types of things, where you're just vacuuming, right? You're not really thinking about anything. You're not really focused on it. You're just vacuuming the house, or maybe you're just washing clothes. You're not really focused and putting a lot of energy into it. And number 7 is sleep time. And sleep time is where you go to sleep. And understanding that, you know what I'm saying, the more rounds of because, you know, there's a sleep cycle. So, you know what I'm saying, the more rounds of REM sleep you get, which is the highest level, right? Which more levels of that you get, the more stuff that's in your brain that gets cleaned out. You know what I'm saying? Your body, your brain is also recovering, recharging, recovering, right? And that's why it's important that, you know, and when that's on a health level, right, it's important to know what you're eating before you go to bed, right? And, you know, and that's another class, and we'll get into that. But make sure you guys understand those 7, right? Focus time, play time, connecting time, physical time, time in, downtime, and sleep time. Make sure you guys write those down. If you need me to clarify them, if you need me to go back through the course, because I am kind of rushing this. Through the class, I am kind of rushing this. But if you really want me to go deeper into it and really, you know, give you a class on it, let me know, and we'll make it happen, man. Check this out, Coach Free. Love each and every last one of y'all. Peace.